A very good morning to all of you. After a long time, we are meeting like this. Hope everything is fine. All of your examination was so good, and very soon you will get your results. In today's class, we will be discussing one of my favorite stories, that is A Face in the Dark, written by none other than Ruskin Bond. So, Ruskin Bond, we all know he is one of the most beloved writers, Indian writers in English, who has influenced a number of readers with his style and technique of writing. Generally, his writings are written in completely lucid language, but there is a factor of wisdom, intelligence, and a deeper insight in his stories. So we all love Ruskin Bond, and we all are always keen to read all his stories. And you all have read a story named Grandfather and the Python last year. And in class 7, if I'm not wrong, in class 7 you have read another story, that is The Tiger in the House. That was also written by Ruskin Bond. So you all are quite acquainted with this writer and his writings too. And in today's story, you will get to know something very special, and the theme with which Ruskin Bond has dealt in this story is so far my favorite theme. Okay, so I know all of you are very much interested, so let's start this. Okay, so I think all of you are having your book that is open in front of you. If not, then pause the video, bring your book, and then keep on listening to the story. A Face in the Dark, written by Ruskin Bond. Mr. Oliver, an Anglo-Indian teacher, was returning to his school late one night. The outskirts of the hill station of Shimla. So we are actually getting introduced to the protagonist of the story, that is Mr. Oliver. He is he's an Anglo-Indian teacher. So he was returning to his school late one night. So then the story is set right now. The place we are talking, that is the outskirts of Shimla. From before Kipling's time, the school had been run on English public schools line. From before Kipling's time, Rudyard Kipling, he is also a famous writer. One of his famous writings is Kim. So from Kipling's time, the school had been run on English public school lines. So from his time, the school is run by English public school lines, and the boys, most of them from wealthy Indian families. So maximum of the students who read here in the school, maximum of them belong to rich, affluent, wealthy families, and they wore blazers, caps, and ties. Life magazine, in a feature on India, had once called it the Eden of the East. So in the feature of India, there's a magazine named Life magazine once called this school as Eden of the East. Why is it called as Eden of the East? See, Eden of the East, it is actually this particular school, this public school is compared to the Eton College of England. Okay, so Eton College of England was a very famous English public school of that times, and of Henry we are talking about the time of Henry IV, and the year is 1440. Okay, so the school was very famous, and here this school also this school is actually compared to this to the school of England, the Eton College of England, because both the schools actually provide quality education to the children, and the readers who read that in this school and that school, both the readers actually, the students belong to very rich and affluent families. Okay, and this Eton of East means it is talking about the maximum parts of eastern country, okay, or the east. So Mr. Oliver had been teaching in the school for several years. The Shimla Bazaar, with its cinemas and restaurants, was about 3 miles from the school. So this Shimla Bazaar, with its cinemas and restaurants, the main bazaar of Shimla, was 3 miles far from the school. And Mr. Oliver, a bachelor, usually strolled into the town in the evening. So he has a habit of strolling in the evening, returning after dark, when he would take a shortcut through the pine forest. So he actually took the shortcut amidst the pine forest, following the path amidst the pine forest. When there was a strong wind, the pine trees made sad, eerie sounds that kept most people to the main road. So what is the characteristic of the pine forest that made this eerie and the spooky, eerie sound, and made the spooky atmosphere, due to which generally people love to keep themselves aloof from this pine forest, and they are mainly on the main roads. And eerie sounds means what? Eerie means terrible. Okay. But Mr. Oliver was not a nervous or imaginative man. So he was not a nervous and imaginative man. So he was not bothered taking the road amidst the forest. He carried a torch and its gleam. The batteries were running down. Moved faithfully down the narrow forest path. So most faithfully he was actually walking through the narrow path of the forest to the most of the down path he was coming. He was moving. When its flickering light fell on the figure of a boy, in the flickering torchlight, he has witnessed a boy who was sitting alone on a rock. Mr. Oliver stopped. Boys were not supposed to be out after dark. This is exactly the intuition of a teacher. This is the way generally a teacher reacts, or a teacher will react. He also reacted the same way. In this dark, this is not the particular time for a student to come out of his hostel, right? At such late hours. What are you doing out here, boy? He asked Mr. Oliver sharply, moving closer so that he could recognize the miscreant, means the mischievous boy. But even as he approached the boy, Mr. Oliver sensed that something was wrong. The boy appeared to be crying. His head hung down. He held his face in his hands. His body shook convulsively, means moved suddenly. While sobbing, generally our body shakes. This type of convulsive shakes are there, right? So his body also shook in the same way, and there was a silent sobbing. It was a strange, soundless weeping, and Mr. Oliver felt distinctly uneasy. He was clueless what should be his next move, because the boy was crying and he was not even answering any of the questions asked by Mr. Oliver. Well, what's the matter? He asked, his anger giving way to concern. What are you crying for? See, First, he was angry. Definitely, he should be. But later on, his anger actually transformed into his concern. And being concerned, he asked the boy, "What are you crying for? What is the purpose?" The boy would not answer or look up. His body continued to be racked with silent sobbing. He kept on sobbing silently. "Come on, boy, you shouldn't be out here at this hour," since it was too late. "Tell me the trouble. Look up." The boy looked up. He took his hands from his face and looked up at the teacher. The light from Mr. Oliver's torch fell on the boy's face. If you could call it a face. Now, here comes the climax. It had no eyes, no nose or mouth. It was just a round, smooth head. Can you imagine a face without its important or essential features? With a school cap on the top of it. And that's where the story should end. But for Mr. Oliver, it did not end here. Just imagine if you ever witness such a scene, how would you react? I would have died for sure. I don't have such strong heart to bear with the situation. So the story could have ended there for Mr. Oliver. But this is not the ending. So he has seen a boy without the features of his face. It was a round, smooth face with a school cap on the top of it. Just imagine about the horrific sight. The torch fell from his trembling hands. Definitely his hands are supposed to be trembling, right? He turned and scrambled down the path. Scramble down means with panic. He was moving with panic. Running blindly through the trees and calling for help. Obviously, he got a panic attack. So he was very much scared and he was desperately looking for help. He was still running towards the school buildings when he saw a lantern swinging in the middle of the path. So he was running towards the school campus and he saw a lantern swinging in the middle of the path. Mr. Oliver stumbled up to the watchman. Stumbled up means bumped up to the watchman. Gasping for breath, he was opening his mouth for breathing. "What is it, Shahib?" asked the watchman. "What had happened to you? Has there been an accident? Why are you running?" "I saw something horrible." He was not in the situation to express what he just saw a few moments back. Something horrible. A boy whipping in the forest and he had no face. Imagine, someone has no face. "No face, Shahib?" asked the watchman. "No eyes, nose, mouth, nothing." "Do you mean it was like this, Shahib?" asked the watchman. Raised the lamp to his own face. The watchman had no face, no ears, no eyes, no features at all. Not even an eyebrow. And that's when the wind blew the lamp out. So the watchman just put the lantern very close to his face and showed Mr. Oliver, "Is he looking like this?" And Mr. Oliver saw it was the same face, having no nose, no ears, no mouth, not even an eyebrow. And At that moment only, with a gust of wind, the lamp blew out. Here ends the story. Now, after reading this, most of you will say, ma'am, this is a horror story. And we all got scared, right? But before you judge this story, let me bring certain more points in front of you that will help you to have a clear connection or a clear sense of mind before judging this. So we can say, see, the story actually can be interpreted in a number of ways. It could be you could say it's a horror story, but yes, it can be said in this manner also. This is nothing but the collective fascination of Mr. Oliver in his subconscious. See, people may have fascination for darkness. Okay, so maybe this was the collective fascination that was there in Oliver's subconscious, which actually led him to think such an incident, or to find out such a character sitting in such profound darkness. And as a consequence of momentary excitement also, this may happen. You know, at some point of time, we also may get excited. So due to the momentary excitement, this may take place. One more thing, he was at a loss to particularize the individuality of the students. See, he was teaching the students for a long period of time. So maybe he couldn't find individuality anymore, or the individuality is overlapped. Okay, so he couldn't find the individuality in the students. That is why there was no face. Okay, if one face is mentioned with its proper features, then it would have been better to identify that particular student. But these features are omitted to show that he was lacking the intensity to particularize the individuality of the student, or this was a lack in him. Another plausible interpretation is that over the years, Mr. Oliver, as I told you, he actually has been teaching the students. So he, what to say, every student has, overlapped with each other. So he couldn't find any individuality. And he is now haunted by the sameness in every individual. We can say Mr. Oliver is also dealing with his loneliness, because he was, as in the beginning, it is said that he was a bachelor. So he was dealing with such loneliness for a long period of time, and that he spends a long time of his life being alone. So this interpretation has some merit too. One more thing you could say, as the title says, a face in the dark. Generally, when we see something in complete darkness, everything seems completely same to us. So generally the image is seen very blurred or hazy, and it's often impossible to recognize that particular thing or the particular individual. Since the story's name is A Face in the Dark, yes, he maybe misunderstood. Actually, there was something else and he thought this to be something else. So we can say all these things, and yes, we can also say this psychological disturbance that was created by his loneliness. This loneliness was the creator of the psychological disturbance that was always present in his subconscious. And all these reasons you should judge before you just blankly say, this is a horror story. This is my request. Okay. So, yes, but this is literature. You can interpret it in your own way. I always give you the liberty. If you have found out any other reason, please do write to me. I would be pleased to know that. These are my interpretation. It doesn't mean you would also think in a same pattern. It's not necessary. Every sort of thinking is welcome. Right? So, I will be meeting in the next class. Till then, you please do read the story and please share your experience. How did you enjoy while reading the story? Have a great day ahead. Thank you.